Welcome and thanks for joining. Today's session is on Microsoft Fabric and what Dynamics users should know. This webinar is recorded and we'll share the replay link with you afterward. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat Q&A box at any time. We'll collect them and follow up with you via email. If you want to contact us directly, please email our team at events@sikich.com. Enjoy the session.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are, and welcome to our Sikich discussion on Microsoft Fabric in conjunction with Microsoft Dynamics World. We've got a group of experts here. We are used to, as a team, responding to customers who are asking questions about Microsoft Fabric. So we thought we'd get everyone together today, someone representing finance and supply chain, business central, and customer engagement, and talk a little bit about what Fabric is, how it integrates with the apps, how it works with Power BI, and a little bit maybe about how it deals with AI, and I think we even might go to the great interesting topic of licensing. So before we get started, I want to do an introduction around the circle of attendees here. So I'm going to start in the order I see them. I see Zach first. Zach, want to say hi?
Yes, thanks, Debbie. Name's Zach Marshall. I'm a pre-sales solution architect here at Sikich with a primary focus on Business Central and the Power Platform. So looking forward to sharing some information with you all.
Thank you, Zach. And the next person I see on my list is Rob Dowsett. Rob, introduce yourself.
Thanks, Debbie. Hi, everyone. Rob Dowsett. I'm a principal here at Sikich. Have a lengthy background with finance and operations, about 23 years working with that product. Also do a lot of work with the Azure platform, Power Platform, and Fabric.
Fabulous. Anthony.
Hey everyone, Anthony Senevi, principal here as well, focused on customer engagement, also Power Platform, pretty much anything Dataverse.
And last but definitely not least, Chris.
Hello, good afternoon. Chris Siley. I am a solution architect on our data and analytics and AI practice, and I essentially am responsible for pretty much everything data and analytics.
Fabulous. Okay, right, let's get to it. And again, we said at the start that we get a lot of questions from our clients about Microsoft Fabric, and we felt that we wanted to spend the time today to give some familiarity. And I'm going to say we're going to start with like Fabric 101, and I'm going to throw the question out to Chris. And Chris, the most basic question of all is what is Fabric? And you know what, I'm going to make an extension to that. What is Fabric and how does it relate to Power BI and these other things called Synapse and Fabric Link that we've heard about?
Yeah, no, great question. And the thing with Fabric is most people hear it and they think it's very daunting, right? They'll either not sure what it is. In most cases, that's what it is. They don't know what it is. But others might have done a little bit of research on themselves and just feel like it's just really daunting. But essentially, it's a pretty simplistic idea of what Fabric is. It's a unified end-to-end data management and analytics platform that is basically being delivered as a SaaS solution. And what I mean by that is they've basically taken a lot of services that people are already familiar with and bundled them together and made one portal access point to that to where I can work with all those services. And you brought up a couple of those, Debbie, in your question. So obviously, most people have heard of Power BI. It is now just a component, another component of Fabric. You would just go to your Fabric portal and you can start creating your Power BI reports right there within the Fabric ecosystem. Synapse as well. While Synapse is still a separate service within Azure that you can do, Microsoft really is trying to move everybody towards the Fabric solution. And some of the components of Synapse have also migrated over into there. So things like that used to be the Synapse data warehouse is essentially just a warehouse in Fabric. So things like that. And really, when you look at what's included in Fabric, I mentioned there's a lot of services that are in there. I try to break that out into components when I talk to people, or personas. So if you're a data engineer, there is essentially like a persona or perspective in Fabric where you're basically going to be working with items inside of Fabric that relate to data engineering. Also performing things like your data ingestion, your data science, doing any type of real-time analytics. So pulling in information off of like IoT devices and stuff like that that are sending out lots and lots of data, you know, almost instantly, and Fabric being able to ingest that data and respond to that almost in a real-time fashion. And then finally, obviously, your old school or legacy business intelligence, which you would use Power BI for. So that's kind of as a whole what Fabric is. It all kind of sits on a technology called OneLake, which is also a unified, essentially just a unified data lake. And the whole purpose of that is to start getting companies away from having all these different data silos. So instead of having to have a bunch of different copies of the same data all over the place, get it all in one spot, the OneLake, and then all these different pieces of an organization or individuals, again, data engineers, data scientists, can all use that same data. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's kind of what Fabric is.
So, Chris, one thing that I got from that comment there was that there's a lot of stuff in Fabric that's not new. So, and I know that we've only been talking about Fabric for probably 18 months. I think I went to the second ever Fabric conference and it was late last year. So given that they're not new, we're not dealing with Microsoft version 1s, which most of our clients tend to want to shy away from. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay, so it's a pretty package with a bow on it. That's just and maybe just a pricing and licensing mechanism more than anything.
It is.
Okay, all right. I think that's good. We're going to move on. I want to hit you up with another question, Chris. You're still in the hot seat. So one of the most interesting things is you've got this Fabric environment over here, and you've got D365, customer engagement, finance and supply chain, business central. I wonder specifically with CE and finance and supply chain, tell me how they integrate. I mean, what's the point at which data from these applications, Microsoft applications, actually gets into that OneLake that is sort of like wrapped up in Fabric?
Yeah, another good question. Obviously, that's one.
They're all good questions, Chris. They're all fabulous questions. They were vetted.
They are fabulous questions. But that, again, that is a one we hear a lot. Is everybody's with their ERP and their customer engagement solutions, they're capturing a lot of data, which the ERP and the engagement systems are very, very good at. But then it's like, what do you do with all that data that you've now captured, right? And these systems, they can only do, so much reporting natively before you need to utilize that data in a broader fashion. And for those two solutions specifically, both finance and operations and CE, those both integrate to Fabric via the Dataverse in a native fashion with minimal setup, right? So there is a service in Power Platform. It's a pre-built service Microsoft has done through the Power Platform called Fabric Link that is very, click, just do a couple clicks and you're going to have that set up. And that essentially is linking Fabric to those environments. And the benefit of that is you're not out moving the data around. And that's one of the major things you will see in any Microsoft, sales or marketing material is that it's no code, low code, no ETL. Those are a lot of terms you'll start hearing when Fabric is being brought up. And what they mean by that is you use this tool or this service called Fabric Link that essentially just leaves the data where it's at, but it creates secure shortcuts in Fabric to where I can then query that data or utilize that data, but the data never is actually moving into Fabric. And that doesn't degrade performance at all. So again,
I'm sure that's going to be really important for everybody. That's the first question, right?
Yeah, and we're trying to really limit, again, that data movement and multiple copies of data. Right. And again, it's very, very quick and easy to set that up and being able to start utilizing that data. And I don't really have a question answer for you on BC. I think I can throw it over to Zach for that.
Yeah, Zach. Right. Zach, you're in the hot seat now. And Chris, we'll leave you alone for a little bit. I'll find someone else to ask for the next one. Zach, talk a little bit about what the relationship between Microsoft Fabric, Dataverse, and Business Central is, and what organizations who are using Business Central need to think about?
Yes, great question. So slightly different from the finance and supply chain and CE route, Business Central doesn't have a native tie into the Fabric Link service that Chris mentioned, but there are many other ways in which Business Central data can become part of that overall Fabric experience. One of those ways is how Microsoft can integrate data from Business Central to a Dataverse environment. So if you are synchronizing data into Dataverse for CRM integration, field service, customer service, or other Power Platform use cases, that data can be exposed into Fabric using the Fabric Link mechanism that Chris mentioned. Outside of that, directly from Business Central into the Fabric environment, you can use the traditional ETL tools that are provided underneath the umbrella of Fabric, such as data flows, data factory, and so forth, or external tools to do that traditional data extraction, ingestions, cleansing, and so forth there. So many different options when it comes to Business Central and how it can connect into that overall Fabric story. And we can approach that, based upon the specific use case. What makes sense? How do we want to move that data from your ERP environment being Business Central into a solution like Fabric to take advantage of those capabilities?
Right. So it means all of those wonderful features that are in Fabric that Chris was talking about is available to basically any Dynamics 365 user, regardless of what application they're using. All righty, Rob, you haven't done enough talking yet, so I'm going to get you on the spot here. Now, let's say an organization is already using Power BI, and they're using Power BI with Business Central or Finance and Supply Chain, CE. Why would they do anything different? I mean, I'm assuming they're just using Power BI. Do they need to move to Fabric? What extra value does that sort of introduction of something like Fabric bring?
Sure. So Fabric's going to add more capability than they have out of the box with that connection method. So for example, with finance and operations, maybe you're using Power BI embedded, or you're connecting through OData. So the first thing Fabric will do, and Chris talked about this earlier, is it will centralize your data. So if you have data from multiple applications, you'll have maybe finance and operations data, maybe you have an MES system, a shipping system, legacy data. Fabric can centralize all of that data in one place. So you've got a unified platform to run all of your reports from. The second thing Fabric will do will let you scale better and give you more performance. So it's a purpose-built reporting platform, amongst other things. So whereas OData, for example, with finance and operations, has some performance constraints, Fabric won't have those. You'll be able to run very large reports, do analytics on very large data sets without any issues through Fabric. So those are two of the big benefits. Some of the other benefits you would get from looking at Fabric would be all of the other functionality that Chris mentioned earlier as well. So things like the access to AI and ML all within that one platform. You've got the data all consolidated that you can run those algorithms over. That's one huge benefit that you get from consolidating that data in one centralized location.
Right. So you're giving everybody the access to all of those additional tools, but I would say one of the things that struck me on that comment was just, again, no degradation of speed and being able to do big reports without actually, in the old days, everything's slowing down, right?
Exactly. Yep. So you're offloading that from that workload from the ERP to the Fabric platform. Yeah,
that makes lots of sense. Okay, so just in thinking about the use of Fabric, one area that I've certainly heard a number of times is where organizations, and they might have separate instances installed. They might have an instance, and this is quite prevalent, let's say, in the world of Business Central, where they may have an instance in the US, may have one in the UK, may have one in Tonga, might have one in who knows where. And the hope is that we can use some sort of tooling that Microsoft is providing to be able to bring all that data together. I wonder, Zach, if you could talk to the idea of using Fabric as a mechanism. And I know that it happens in CE and rarely, but it does happen in the F&O world, but typically more maybe in the CE and BC world. Zach, do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like if an organization stands up a instance, on some offshore location and in a different Microsoft region?
Yeah, absolutely. So companies that have siloed information and ERP data, because of geographic reasons, local functionality reasons, or really just separate ownership, are always kind of seeking a situation where you can get real-time consolidated reporting across companies, regions, and so forth. Using those tools I previously mentioned, Business Central plus Fabric can give you a really clean, consolidated view of your data across multiple different regions into one consolidated data reporting platform. So while you still might do traditional consolidation within the ERP system for different reasons, within Fabric, you can get real-time consolidated reporting across all of those different regions in one central place to access your data, and then use all that rich Fabric functionality on top of that to analyze data even further using those methods.
Right. So you're getting a lot more bang for your buck, right? Because you're able to get access to all of that great technology. And maybe have something and this happens where organizations might have Business Central in one location and finance and supply chain in another location. That would be a prime example of being able to right size the ERP depending on the size or the requirements of the business, and yet being able to get that consolidated reporting.
Absolutely.
All righty. Anthony, I'm desperately trying to find something for you, but unfortunately, I think I've got the next ones for Chris. Your name's on my list, though.
Well, I'd love to piggyback on what Zach said, too, though, because
sure.
Consolidation is very important on the CE, CRM side, too, especially when you're looking at your sales across an organization. We've seen a lot of organizations that have different branches or divisions, or maybe they have separate business units or operating companies, or maybe they're even a parent company, and they want to get consolidated financial reporting on what their sales outlook and forecast is like. And Fabric is great for that, connecting directly, bringing it all into one location. There still are some instances where you want to have a data warehouse, so you can do more transactional type reporting on sales, but that consolidation across a region or even a global organization really helps out with Fabric.
Right. That would also help, and dare I even suggest that an organization may have a non-Microsoft system out there. That would also help for that too, would it?
Yeah, exactly. If you have sales organizations running on competitive products that don't want to switch and interrupt their processes, Fabric can still bring that data together and normalize it for executive level reporting.
Okay, and then I think you've also got access to some of that data governance tooling within Fabric that would be able to be useful in those sorts of environments.
Yeah.
All righty. Okay, let's move on to something that's everyone's talking about, and I know no conversation would be complete if we didn't mention artificial intelligence. So let's just dive on in. And Chris, you're on the hot seat for this one. Back to you. What's Fabric going to do for me if I want to do AI? What relevance has Fabric got? Maybe I'm busy thinking all I need is Copilot. Tell me a little bit about what relevance, why an organization would want to consider Fabric in terms of any of their AI initiatives.
Sure. And this kind of is some of it's going to just build upon what Rob has mentioned earlier and what Anthony just mentioned as well. So obviously Fabric, we've said it a couple of times, it's centralizing your data, right? So we're getting all this disparate data into one place. And like Anthony just said, we're now standardizing that. And then the other thing that we're able to now do with that is within the platform is now clean that data up. So not only just standardize it, but clean it. And for anybody who's done anything at all with and AI is rather new. So anybody that has been dabbling in it, but even in just reporting in general, knows that if your data is not good, you're not going to get good results. And for AI, that's even more important. Like if your data is not really clean and precise, then the AI is not going to perform very well or give you really the expected results that you're looking for.
Not much fuzzy logic in this ERP reporting, is there? It's like fuzzy doesn't seem to work with ERP.
Yeah, fuzzy doesn't really work very well. So So that's one of the main kind of things is, again, you're building on what Fabric already provides. It's getting all the data into the single platform and then utilizing all the tools available to you to get the data ready to even begin to think about using that data in some type of an AI initiative. But once you get to that point, then Fabric is going to allow you to very easily work with things like the Azure OpenAI service. You mentioned Copilot, obviously. You're starting to see Copilot embedded pretty much in everything. Fabric is no different. If I was to go in and try to create a pipeline, I would see that Copilot is right there to help me write code. So it's already kind of embedded in there, but then there's that added capability of now bringing in, services. And to another thing that Anthony was mentioning about, things outside of Microsoft, if you use other applications that not Microsoft stack, Fabric does have a REST API or a set of API tools that would allow other applications to essentially get data from Fabric. So you could essentially use Fabric as that data unified platform, do all that cleansing, and then you could hook into it to pull that data into some other system. And then there's also the ability to even create your own kind of APIs through Fabric if there's additional data that now that you've cleansed that, standardized it, really got it ready for some AI initiatives, but your tooling isn't easily hooked into Fabric, you can at least expose that data again in a secure way to be able to retrieve that data into any other tool that can connect to REST endpoints. So I think that's the real benefit of it. Again, is bringing all that data together, utilizing all the tools that are available in there to get that data ready to be utilized in an AI initiative, and then being able to very easily start using those tools to utilize that data that you've now got ready.
Right. So Fabric's really playing a ground level role in terms of getting people ready to do AI. For your AI readiness is your data about number one, your data, and Fabric just gives that environment in which that data can be prepared, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for that, Chris. The really fun next topic I'm going to move on to, and this is the one that everyone is ducking and diving, saying, don't ask me this one, but I'm going to pick on Rob for this one. And it is yours, mine, and everyone's favorite topic, Microsoft licensing. And this is something that, on the face of it, can be incredibly complicated and quite difficult to understand. But Rob, come and dumb it down for us. Give us how is Fabric licensed? Is it part of existing licenses? Is it included in M365, Power BI? What's the story with licensing?
So refreshingly, Fabric is relatively simple to understand from a licensing perspective. So short answer is Fabric won't be included in anything else that you own today. So if you have M365 or D365 licenses, you won't have any Fabric entitlement through those. To purchase or to license Fabric, you would do that through your Azure subscription. So through the Azure portal, you would go to Fabric and you would purchase Fabric capacity. Fabric capacity is purchased in different SKU sizes, so from 2, F2, F4, F8, etc., all the way up to, I think, 1024 or 248. You can purchase Fabric capacity, and that entitles you to use the features that we've talked about today. So one of the nice things is you can start small, say maybe with an F2 or an F4 SKU, and then scale that up as your Fabric use grows, as your consumption grows. And that includes your ability to run reports, process data sets through pipelines and things that Chris just talked about. And then at the F64 level, that actually includes Power BI licensing for the organization as well.
So you can just go online and look it up yourself?
Yes. The Fabric SKU pricing is public, so you can look at it online. And something worth looking at is also the 3-year commitment gives you a pretty good discount on that month-to-month price.
And I understand the idea that we would maybe start small, but is there any guidelines in terms of what's usual? What are people, it's all very well having an F2, but if you're actually having to go and get a F640.
So it's going to depend on the amount of data processing, the number of reports that you're running, largely. So on the F&O side, we generally find an F4 and an F8 is a good place to start based on our average data set size, reasonably large manufacturing or distribution organization. But you also have reports within Fabric that can show you how fast you're consuming that capacity each month. And you receive alerts as you go through that capacity. So you get over 80%, you go over 100%, and you can scale up as you need to once you hit those thresholds. Or you can just let it run over to the next month, and after that point, your processing is just slowed down.
So it's like the old internet used to be. If you use your total, you're grinding down to a halt. It doesn't stop.
Scaled back to dial-up speed.
Right. Fabulous. One more question on the licensing. Now you said that what sort of license of Power BI is included? Did you say F64?
I believe it's F64.
Okay. And in terms of all of those features that we talked about, Chris listed off a whole lot of features, including data science and data engineering. Are those tools available at all levels?
They are. Yep.
There we go.
Starting, they made a change. I forget when exactly they made it. Originally, things like Copilot and some of the heavy capacity things were not included in anything below an F64, but they have since changed that. So even things like Copilot now go all the way down to an F2. So from a capacity SKU that you purchase, you're not limited to any of the functionality that you can do within Fabric. Now, that's not to say that, like some of the stuff that Rob was saying, that's not to say it's going to function at its peak performance. You might very well not be able
you want to do
some
really complicated machine learning modeling at an F4, you're going to run out pretty quick.
Right. Yeah. You're going to blow that capacity pretty quick. So while they say it does it, it might be like you could maybe do a small POC on it. But at the end of the day, you're more than likely going to have to scale up. One other quick kind of additional point I'll make, just to hopefully clear something up, because you've got a lot of people that are on Power BI Premium right over the years. So what they've done, and if people have not got notifications yet, I don't really know the status of where they are on it, but they did make announcements months back that they are basically deprecating Power BI Premium licensing. You're no longer going to be able to purchase it. It's a SKU that's going to go away. The equivalent SKU to that they're basically telling people they need to migrate to is the F64, which, like Rob was saying, that's the same level that kind of brings in the Power BI licensing. So you could go lower than that, but you're not going to have that. If somebody was on Power BI Premium, they were used to not having to pay extra Power BI licensing, they would need to go to that equivalent F64 to keep what they currently have.
Interesting. Any hooks in there, do you think? Any traps?
Nope.
Good. All right. I'm glad you're here, Chris. I've got one more for you. Okay, so one of the things I recall us being very excited about for finance and supply chain clients is that there is an embedded Power BI engine within finance and supply chain. You are limited. You can only write reports using that Power BI license off your stock standard Dynamics data. You're not allowed to grab data from other places. And also, you can't use it outside of the system. It's for reports that are run embedded inside D365. What happens to those reports? Let's say you've got a phenomenal report that you've built, it's embedded. Can you just sort of copy and paste it over to Fabric? What happens in terms of migrating those reports? And I believe with the sales solution as well, with the customer engagement, the same thing occurs. Is that right, Anthony?
Yep, it is.
Yeah. So what happens? Do we just copy and paste them over to Fabric, or do they need to be rebuilt?
Yeah. So I'll take back kind of your first statement. So as far as what happens to them, nothing, right? So they aren't going away. If you have D365, you have a license to essentially use embedded Power BI. So all of your users will be able to continue to use those Power BI embedded reports without any additional licensing. They don't need to buy anything to do with Fabric at all, right? So as far as what happens with them, there's nothing that happens with them. They can continue to be used as is. Now, if you decide to take advantage of the Fabric, as we've kind of laid out in some of these other questions, you do want to move to Fabric and really start taking advantage of what Fabric has to offer. There is no direct port of those reports from embedded Power BI over to Fabric. And there's multiple reasons for that. And you laid out a couple of those, that the embedded only looks at D365 data. It's looking at a pre-built data model that Microsoft built to specifically support those embedded Power BI reports. So again, they're also very limited in the scope of what they even do. Whereas if we start bringing in Fabric, we now have access to, almost any data we want out of F&O or CE for that matter. But it's also structurally different. So you're going to be exporting out, either tables or entities that more than likely aren't going to match up to that data model that is created. So you are essentially looking at rewriting those reports in Fabric. There may be some things you can copy and paste over. You might be able to grab some of your measures out of the embedded ones and copy and paste them and potentially just tweak the table names and things like that. So there may be some things, but I would consider it, if you're going to make that move, you can almost expect that everything is going to have to be rewritten in Fabric, and just kind of go in with that mindset and be overly enjoyed if some of it is copy paste.
This does strike me though, if that sort of, if an effort to modernize your entire data and reporting structures, maybe not a bad time to rethink what reports you're getting, how you're getting your data, how's it presenting, and whether or not there's an opportunity to use AI with some of that data as well. So maybe that would be something that would connect nicely if you were thinking of moving your reports over, that you would be able to combine it with some level of sort of deeper evaluation of your reporting environments.
Yeah, those are good points, because a lot of times you'll hear people that, say, well, I just want to copy and paste them over. I don't need to rethink them. But when you're changing systems or you're implementing a big solution like this, like you said, Debbie, that's a perfect opportunity to actually do that. Otherwise, why are you implementing the solution, or why are you changing your systems, right? If you're not looking at, modernizing or changing how you're going to be doing something. So yeah, I think those are both very, very valid points.
Right. All right. We've talked quite a lot about the breadth and depth of what Fabric has to offer, and I think we've got one last question on our agenda. And I'm going to throw this one to Anthony, because you haven't been on the stage enough, Anthony. All right. What does a client of ours, what does an organization using Dynamics 365, any one of them, BC, FO, CE, do they need to hire a data architect? Do they need to, as I've heard, implementing Fabrics just like next, even I could do it. So, Anthony, what does an organization need to think about when they are looking at implementing Fabric, and where typically do you see organizations asking for help?
It's a good question, especially with it being so new for a lot of people, even if it has been maybe rebranded from some other pieces. You really have to look at your own team skills versus what your organizational needs are. I think more mature, larger companies are probably on that track already, but there are some that aren't even sure where to start, which I think is where Microsoft and their partner system comes in, because we can come in and evaluate and help you decide, what are your needs, what are your existing skill sets, and what are the gaps to get from one to the other, right? Is it a matter of training? Is it a matter of hiring? Or maybe it's staff augmentation to get to where you want to need to be. I don't know that it's a simple as picking somebody on your team and say, hey, go after Fabric. I think it's determining who's got that skill set, who's got the background, and what training offerings are out there to get them there.
And I imagine, I go back to the comment that I think Chris made, which was there's some data science tools in there. This is not something that you have to go out and hire a data scientist to run Fabric. That is just a a tool within Fabric that's available to if you have the people with the skills to do it. Is that right?
It is. It's a conversation we have quite a bit. For some of us who have maybe been around longer than others, we have low-level skills that aren't used much anymore. But knowing how to write a SQL query or function can help you in dealing with data in the cloud. So I think having that basis can help you determine it. I mean, I was thinking we were talking about built-in reports versus overall reports. I think it's great to have the built-in ones you can use. But it also goes back to the AI question. If you've got the skill set and you can train it, reanalyzing, rethinking what you're doing from a reporting structure can help you identify your data issues that are going to hold up AI. So it really is, I think, like you said, foundational to have those skill sets to make sure you have the training, whether it's in-house or third party, to be able to do it foundationally with your data to reporting to AI.
If a person who is well qualified and used to writing Power BI reports on top of Dynamics 365 Sales, for instance, they're going to be fine in the new environment, though?
I think so. I mean, I can say from my experience, I think there's still a learning curve, maybe not so much just in Fabric in general, but from my old school days of going from a data warehouse to a data lake to a data house to a data speedboat. I don't know what else is in there, but there's a lot more structure.
One lake.
There you go, one lake. There's a lot to learn, I think. But like you said, having those foundational skills is going to make it easier for somebody to jump in and figure it out or be trained up.
All right. Well, that was the last question for the group here. So I guess I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to my panelists for bringing some of your expert product knowledge and experience working with Microsoft Fabric to the call today. Hope that the people who have joined us today have got something out of this, and would obviously call anyone who wants to find out more, dig in deep, get up and going with Fabric, to get in touch with any one of us from Sikich, and we'll be there to help. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this session gave you a clearer picture of what Microsoft Fabric can mean for your business. If you'd like to continue the conversation, reach out to us at events@sikich.com and we'll connect you with the right expert.